Michael stood by the window of his second-floor bedroom, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the once blue sky was now a blanket of gray and threatening clouds. The sea below foamed with growing waves, a harbinger of the hurricane approaching with alarming speed. The coastal town, usually vibrant and full of life, seemed like a ghost of itself, with the streets quickly emptying as residents prepared for the imminent storm. In the room next door, the sound of suitcases being closed and items being packed echoed through the thin wall. His parents, Anna and Robert, were in a frenzy of preparation. His mother, her voice tinged with urgency, called out to him, "Michael, have you packed your things? We need to be ready to leave in 20 minutes. "I'm coming, Mom," he replied, but his voice lacked conviction. His mind was elsewhere, consumed by worry for Lucky, his dog, who had disappeared that morning. The fear of leaving his furry friend behind tightened his chest like a knot. Robert appeared at the bedroom door, his expression laden with concern. "Son, we don't have much time. The storm might arrive sooner than expected. It's dangerous to stay." Michael turned to face his father, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "I know, Dad, but I can't leave without Lucky. He must be scared, out there all alone." Anna joined them in the room, placing a comforting hand on Michael's shoulder. "Sweetheart, I know how you feel, but your safety is more important right now. Lucky is smart, he'll find somewhere to shelter." "But what if he's trapped somewhere? What if he can't find shelter?" Michael's voice trembled, his heart heavy with the thought of abandoning Lucky to the storm's mercy. Robert exchanged a worried glance with Anna before kneeling to Michael's eye level. "I'll make a deal with you. Let's finish packing for the evacuation. If by then the hurricane hasn't reached us, I'll help you look for Lucky quickly." "Agreed." Michael hesitated, then nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "Agreed." With his father's promise, Michael felt a new wave of determination. He knew time was of the essence and that every moment counted, both for his family and for Lucky. Quickly, he began gathering his most precious belongings, his mind racing with possible hiding spots for his dog as the gray clouds on the horizon merged into a threatening mass, promising a stormy night ahead. The wind was already howling through the window cracks, a symphony of omens as Michael's family loaded the last bags into the car. Worry was etched on everyone's face, but for Michael, there was an even greater anxiety weighing on his heart, the unknown whereabouts of Lucky. Anna, adjusting the luggage in the trunk, called urgently, "Michael, please, come now. We need to leave before it's too late." Michael, standing at the doorway, felt the pressure of time and the force of the wind starting to throw small debris through the air. "I need to find Lucky," he shouted against the rising roar of the wind. "I can't leave him here. He's part of the family." Hearing his son's words, Robert approached him with firm steps, trying to mask his own fear with a facade of calm. "Michael, I understand, son, but it's extremely dangerous now. What do you think Lucky would want you to do?" Michael looked at his father, his eyes brimming with tears, determination building inside him like a fire. "He would do the same for me. I know he would." Seeing his son's unwavering determination, Robert sighed, the internal conflict clear on his face. "All right, let's all go together, then. But at the first sign of danger, we go back to the car. No arguments." Michael nodded, relieved and energized by his father's concession. "Thank you, Dad. It'll be quick. I just need to check the places where he likes to hide." Together, they walked back into the house, the wind now whistling with a ferocity that made the mission seem even more urgent. Anna, following behind, cast nervous glances at the sky, where the clouds swirled in an increasingly menacing vortex. "Let's start with the backyard," Michael suggested, leading the way to the back door. "He loves to stay under the porch when he's scared." Robert nodded, grabbing a flashlight from a nearby cupboard. "I'll check the shed and the garage. Anna, could you?" Before he could finish, a loud crash came from the front of the house, as if something large had been dragged by the wind and thrown against the structure. Anna grabbed Robert's arm, her gaze fixed in the direction of the noise. "Everyone inside now," Robert ordered, pulling Anna and Michael back into the safety of the house. They entered quickly, locking the door behind them, Michael's heart pounding with an intensity he had never felt before. However, the decision was made, and the search for Lucky would continue, no matter the cost. Michael knew he couldn't give up now, not when his most loyal friend needed him more than ever. With the house trembling under the growing power of the hurricane, they prepared to face whatever came next. As Michael and his parents left the relative safety of the car to face the cutting wind, the city around them looked like a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie. The streets, usually pulsing with the energy of everyday life, were now deserted, with leaves and small objects being dragged like confetti in a grim celebration of nature's power. The shrill sound of sirens competed with the howling wind, creating a cacophony that filled the air with tension and urgency. Robert cast a worried glance at the swirling clouds above them, moving quickly toward the city's epicenter. "Michael, we need to hurry. We don't have much time before the worst of the storm hits." Michael just nodded, his mind focused on a single mission. They ran through the streets, dodging broken branches and flying debris. When they reached their house, the sight of the home he had always known, now threatened by the impending storm, made his heart heavy. He called out for Lucky with a voice that struggled to be heard over the clamor of the wind. "Lucky! Lucky, where are you, boy?" His voice was a mix of hope and despair, echoing sadly through the empty structure. There was no answer, only the incessant sound of rain pounding against the roof and windows. With a resolute gesture, Michael forced the door against the wind, trying to invade, locking it firmly behind him. He knew every second counted and that his search could not be delayed. Anna held the flashlight as they climbed the stairs, the steps creaking under their hurried feet. "Let's check the bedrooms first. He likes to hide under your bed during storms," she suggested, trying to keep her voice calm. They searched the house, opening every door, every closet, calling and listening, hoping for a bark, a sign that Lucky was there. But each room only echoed the sound of the furious wind and nothing more. Robert, keeping an eye on the windows that shook with the force of the wind, spoke in a low but firm tone. "We have to check the basement. He might have gone there looking for shelter." Michael nodded, leading the way to the small door that led to the house's basement. Carefully descending the stairs, the flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, revealing the basement that seemed a refuge from the chaos outside. And it was there, behind a bookshelf that seemed strangely out of place, that they heard something, a sound that was neither the wind nor the rain. It was a low whimper, almost muffled, the sound of a frightened animal. "Lucky!" Michael shouted, hope reigniting in his chest as he approached the bookshelf, ready to discover what was hidden beyond it. The basement, usually a place of storage and forgetfulness, now resonated with the faint barks of Lucky. The flashlight shook in Michael's trembling hands as he and his parents descended the last steps, the sound guiding them through the gloom. The bookshelf at the back of the basement, normally full of old Christmas decorations and dusty boxes, was now partially moved away from the wall, as if someone or something had shifted it. "Lucky!" Michael called, his voice echoing in the confined space. As he approached, he saw that the bookshelf hid a narrow door, an entrance to a place he had never known existed in his own house. Anna placed her hand on Michael's shoulder, an expression of concern mixed with curiosity on her face. "What is this? I've never seen this door before." Robert, examining the structure of the door, murmured, "It looks like some kind of shelter. Maybe your grandfather built it. He was always very cautious." Carefully, Michael pulled the door, which opened with a revealing creak, uncovering a space that contrasted with the rest of the basement. Inside, a small room was equipped with shelves containing canned goods, potable water, a first aid kit, and other emergency supplies. And there, huddled in a corner, was Lucky, trembling but clearly relieved to see his owner. "Lucky!" Michael knelt beside the dog, hugging him tightly. "I knew I'd find you." Lucky licked Michael's face, wagging his tail weakly, his way of expressing both relief and lingering fear. As Anna and Robert joined them in the shelter, Michael's attention was drawn to an object that seemed out of place among the supplies. A leather-bound diary, clearly old but well-preserved. Curious, Michael picked up the diary, running his fingers over the yellowed pages. "It's Grandpa's," he murmured, recognizing the meticulous handwriting that filled the pages. He wrote about everything here, even about local historical artifacts he found. Robert leaned in to get a better look. "Your grandfather was quite an adventurer, it seems. Maybe there's something here that can tell us more about our town's history." As the wind roared outside, the shelter offered not only physical refuge but also a window into the past, through the memories and discoveries of a man who had been, in his own way, an explorer. With Lucky safe by his side, Michael leafed through the diary, each page a promise of stories yet untold and secrets waiting to be uncovered. He knew that despite the hurricane's chaos outside, they had found a much more significant treasure right there in the silence and safety of the secret shelter. As the hurricane relentlessly battered the city outside, Michael, Lucky, and his parents found unexpected refuge in the underground shelter. The wind howled, a wild fury against the house's walls, but the sound was muffled and distant inside the concrete hideaway filled with memories. The dog, once trembling with fear, now lay quietly beside Michael, warmed by human contact and the shelter's security. Sitting on an old blanket he found among the supplies, Michael flipped through the pages of his grandfather's diary. Each entry revealed a piece of the life of a man he only knew through stories told at family gatherings. "Look at this, Mom," said Michael, turning the diary to show a specific page to Anna. He wrote about a medallion he found not far from here. "It seems like it was part of a shipwreck." Anna, looking over her glasses, read the words carefully. "Your grandfather was always a treasure hunter, in his own way. He loved those adventures. I think he would have been happy to know you found this diary." "Yes," Robert added, moving closer to see the diary entry. "And these stories. Maybe we can look for some of these artifacts after all this is over. It could be a good way to honor his memory." "I'd love that," Michael replied, his heart warming at the thought of continuing his grandfather's quests. The storm, though terrifying in its strength, had brought with it an opportunity to connect with his past in a way he had never imagined. As minutes turned into hours, the family shared stories and memories, each diary entry weaving a richer tapestry of Michael's grandfather's life. Outside, the wind still roared with fury, but inside the shelter, a feeling of peace and wonder prevailed among them. They heard the occasional crash when something large was thrown against the house by the wind. Each external sound was a reminder of the relentless forces of nature outside their safe haven. Yet those sounds were nothing compared to the warmth of the lantern and the stories that kept the light of curiosity and hope alive in Michael's heart. "Should we try to see how things are outside?" Robert eventually suggested, looking at his wristwatch, which marked the slow but steady passage of time. "Let's wait just a bit longer," Anna replied cautiously. "It's still too risky." So they decided to remain in the shelter, surrounded by walls that protected them not only from the furious winds but also from the fears and uncertainties the hurricane had brought. Together, they awaited the right moment to emerge, Michael's grandfather's diary held firmly in his hands, like a beacon guiding them through the storm's darkness. After what felt like an eternity, the relentless roar of the hurricane finally began to subside. The fierce wind that had tried in vain to penetrate the shelter's walls now became a distant whisper, an echo of its former fury. Michael, Anna, Robert, and Lucky listened intently as the sound of raindrops softened and calm slowly returned. "It's ending," Robert commented, looking toward the shelter's entrance. "I think we can go out and see how everything is out there." Michael looked at his father, both anxious and cautious. "Can we open the door now? See if the rest of the house is okay?" Anna nodded, holding Lucky close to her as they got up. "Let's go slowly. We need to be careful." With a nod, Robert slowly opened the shelter door. The house was silent, except for the soft drip of water somewhere in the distance. They climbed the stairs, the dim morning light filtering through windows partially covered with debris. As they stepped outside, the scene was desolate. Trees uprooted, debris scattered across the streets, and the neighboring houses showed evident scars from the hurricane's violence. Even so, the fact that they were safe was an immense relief. As they assessed the situation around their house, the distant sound of sirens announced the arrival of emergency services. Soon, a team of firefighters appeared on the street, carefully navigating the affected areas. "Is anyone here?" called one of the firefighters, his strong voice cutting through the silence. "We're here," Robert responded, waving to get the group's attention. "We're all okay." The team approached quickly, relieved to find the family unharmed. One of the firefighters, a tall man with a firm demeanor, smiled upon seeing Michael and Lucky. "You're lucky," he remarked, looking around at the damage. "Many people weren't as fortunate." Michael nodded, still holding his grandfather's diary as if it were a precious treasure. "It was the shelter," he explained. "We found a shelter in the basement, built by my grandfather." The firefighters exchanged surprised glances. "A shelter?" one of them asked, intrigued. "That's rare around here." "Yes, and it's full of supplies," Anna added. "I think Michael's grandfather thought of everything." The firefighter who seemed to be in charge made a note in his notebook. "That's incredible. It's something we should consider for the future. Having a safe place can really save lives." As the firefighters checked the house's structure and assessed the damage, Michael couldn't help but feel a silent pride. His grandfather's secret shelter and diary had not only kept them safe, but had also revealed a rich story waiting to be told. "Do you want to share this with someone?" the older firefighter asked, pointing to the diary. "It looks like there's an interesting story there." Michael looked at his parents, who nodded encouragingly. "I think so," he replied, determined. "There's much more than just supplies down there. I think my grandfather left something important." With safety assured and the storm now a distant memory, Michael sensed a new adventure forming. One that involved not only physical rescue but also the discovery of secrets from the past that could illuminate his town's future. After the calm that followed the hurricane, the town was in a frenzy not only to rebuild but also to understand the implications of the incredible discovery made at Michael's house. News of the secret shelter and the artifacts stored inside spread quickly, transforming the town into a hub of academic and historical interest. The morning after the rescue was marked by the arrival of a series of unusual vehicles for that quiet street. News vans, university cars, and museum SUVs began to park along the street, each bringing people eager to investigate what could be a significant archaeological find. Michael watched all this from his porch, still trying to process how his desperate search for his dog had led to such a commotion. Beside him, Lucky lay calmly, watching the activity around them. One of the first to approach was Dr. Ethan Reed, a renowned archaeologist working with one of the country's most prestigious universities. With gray hair and a keen gaze, he approached the family with a warm smile. "You must be Michael and his parents," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. Reed. I've heard a lot about what you found here. It's truly remarkable." Robert shook his hand, nodding. "Yes, it was a surprise for all of us. We're still trying to understand exactly what we have here." Anna, ever vigilant, asked, "Do you think this could really be important?" Dr. Reed nodded, looking at Michael with interest. "Certainly. If the artifacts we found here are as authentic as they seem, we could be dealing with a significant piece of local history, something that might rewrite our understanding of the past." Michael, still holding his grandfather's diary, hesitated before speaking. "My grandfather wrote about many things in the diary. He mentioned artifacts, but I had no idea they could be so important." The archaeologist smiled, clearly fascinated. "And that's exactly what we want to discover. Every piece of history helps us understand better who we are and where we came from. I'm eager to see what else we might find." As Dr. Reed and other experts began their work, setting up equipment and analyzing the artifacts, Michael couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and awe. The house he had always known was now the epicenter of a discovery that was attracting attention from all over the region. "Would you mind if I take a look at the diary?" Dr. Reed asked, leaning in to get a closer look at the book Michael was holding so carefully. Michael hesitated for a moment, but then handed over the diary. "Sure, but please be careful. It's one of the few things left from my grandfather." Dr. Reed accepted the diary with reverence, leafing through the pages with a mix of curiosity and respect. It's incredible how these pages keep the voices of the past alive. Each note, each word, is a window into the thoughts and hopes of those who came before us. As the day went on, more academics and curious onlookers gathered at Michael's house, all drawn by the promise of new discoveries and the chance to participate in a historic event. For Michael, all this still felt like a dream. In just a few days, his life had changed in ways he could never have predicted. And as he watched the excavations and analyses unfold, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets his grandfather's diary might reveal, and how those discoveries might shape not only his town but also his own future. The community began to look at Michael as a local hero, not just for his bravery during the storm, but also for being the one responsible for uncovering a hidden legacy that could transform his town's history. And as the archaeologists continued their work, there was a palpable sense that this was just the beginning of a new era of discoveries and learning for everyone. With the archaeologists and historians working at full speed, the discoveries made at Michael's house began to capture the imagination of everyone in town. Among the artifacts carefully removed from the secret shelter, one stood out in particular: an ancient gold coin with inscriptions that had not been seen on any other known piece. Dr. Reed, with a sparkle in his eye, called an impromptu press conference on the porch of Michael's parents' house. He was excited, holding the coin between his fingers as if it were the key to a long-lost puzzle. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, looking at the growing group of reporters, residents, and onlookers, "I am pleased to announce that this specific artifact might be part of a long-lost pirate treasure." An excited murmur rippled through the crowd. Michael, standing beside his parents, could hardly believe what he was hearing. His adventure to find Lucky had turned into a treasure hunt. "A pirate treasure?" Anna asked incredulously. "How is that possible?" Dr. Reed smiled, pleased with the reaction. "We believe these coins, along with other items found, date back to a time when the region was frequented by notorious pirates. Old documents speak of a ship called the Star of the Sea, which sank near the coast during a storm. It seems part of this treasure may have been recovered and stored by Michael's grandfather, perhaps as a way to protect the town from the chaos that might follow a public discovery." "Do you think there's more out there?" Robert asked, fascinated by the possibility. "It's quite possible," Dr. Reed replied. "We've already begun investigating other areas nearby, and with the help of historical records, we hope to uncover more pieces of this fascinating puzzle." The news of the pirate treasure spread like wildfire. Soon, the town was buzzing with new energy, as tourists, journalists, and treasure hunters flocked to the area, drawn by the possibility of finding hidden riches and being part of a living history. Michael, walking through the now vibrant streets of the town, felt as if he were living in a dream. He met his best friend, Lucas, in the park, where a group of tourists was listening to a local guide tell the story of the treasure. "Can you believe this?" Lucas asked, amazed. "All of this started because of you and Lucky." Michael shrugged, still getting used to the attention. "I just wanted to find Lucky, but I guess Grandpa had more secrets than we imagined." "Do you think they'll find more stuff?" Lucas inquired, curiosity evident in his tone. Dr. Reed is optimistic. "It seems there's a lot more to discover," Michael replied, recalling the archaeologist's words. "I'm excited to see what else the past can show us." The town began to transform before Michael's eyes. New shops and restaurants opened to cater to the influx of visitors, and local residents, initially skeptical, began to embrace the change, seeing it as a chance for renewal and growth. As he walked home that night, Michael reflected on how much everything had changed in such a short time. From a desperate search for his dog, he was now part of something much larger, something that was helping to revitalize his town and connect the present with the past. When he finally arrived home, Lucky ran to meet him at the door, wagging his tail enthusiastically. Michael knelt to pet his faithful companion, whispering, "You and Grandpa made this happen, you know?" The wind gently swayed the trees, and in Michael's heart, there was a sense that this was just the tip of the iceberg, a prelude to many more discoveries yet to come. The pirate treasure was just one piece of a much larger puzzle, and he was eager to unravel every part of it. With the influx of visitors drawn by the story of the pirate treasure and the discoveries in Michael's shelter, the town began to transform. Where there was once desolation and destruction, new opportunities and renewed energy now flourished. The sound of hammers and saws filled the air, replacing the howling of the wind and rain. Small businesses that had been destroyed during the hurricane were rebuilt with community support and the help of new investors who saw potential in the revived town. The streets, once deserted and silent, now pulsed with life and anticipation. Michael walked through the central square, observing the activity around him. The cafe where he used to spend afternoons studying was now filled with tourists and reporters, all eager to learn more about the boy who had inadvertently put the town on the map. "Michael," called the familiar voice of Dona Marta, the cafe owner. "Come here, my dear. I have a fresh apple pie I made especially for you." He smiled as he approached, smelling the sweet aroma of the pie that had always been his favorite. "Thank you, Dona Marta," he said, accepting a generous slice. "I'm glad to see your cafe so busy." "Oh, my angel, thanks to you," she replied, looking around with eyes full of gratitude. "This town was almost lost, but you brought hope back to all of us." Michael blushed, always a little uncomfortable with the attention. "I just wanted to find Lucky. All this was an accident, I guess." Dona Marta laughed softly, her hand resting affectionately on Michael's shoulder. "Sometimes, the best miracles are accidents. And you have a heart as big as your grandfather's." As he savored the pie, Michael looked out the window, seeing groups of people on guided tours, exploring the sites mentioned in his grandfather's diary. The town had become an unexpected tourist destination, with signs pointing to places of historical interest and new shops offering souvenirs inspired by the discovered artifacts. Leaving the cafe, he found Lucas and his other friends in the park, where an improvised stage had been set up for presentations and lectures on local history. "Hey, Michael, are you going up there to give a talk too?" Lucas joked, nudging him with his elbow. Michael laughed, shaking his head. "I think I'll leave that to the experts. But it's amazing to see how everyone is interested in our town now." Lucas nodded, looking around. "Yeah, and it's all because of you. You're a hero, man." "I don't know about hero," Michael replied modestly, "but I'm glad things are getting better. It's good to see everyone smiling again." The afternoon passed quickly, with more events and activities in town, all revolving around the place's newfound fame. Michael, although grateful for the recognition, knew that much of what was happening was thanks to his grandfather's legacy and the community's determination to rise again. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Michael returned home, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. Lucky ran to meet him at the door, as always, bringing joy and comfort. Michael crouched to hug his dog, whispering, "We did it, boy. We helped bring the town back." With the support of his family, friends, and the entire community, Michael had found a new purpose. He realized that the discoveries were just the beginning of a promising future for everyone. The town was not only recovering, it was being reborn, stronger and more united than ever. The idea of a museum to celebrate the town's newly discovered history quickly gained momentum among residents and visitors. What began as a suggestion at a community meeting became a collective mission, uniting everyone in an effort to preserve not just the artifacts found, but also the rich tapestry of stories and memories that comprised the region's legacy. Michael was in school when the history teacher, Mr. Thompson, brought the idea to the class. "Guys, have you heard about the plan for the town's museum?" he asked, writing the names of various artifacts on the board. "It's an ambitious project, but I believe it can transform our community." Michael's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "It'll be amazing to see all those artifacts together, telling the story of our town," he commented, feeling the weight of responsibility and pride. "Definitely," Mr. Thompson agreed, adjusting his glasses as he addressed the class. "And we have you to thank, Michael, and your family, for finding the shelter and hidden treasures." After class, Michael walked to the square where preparations for the museum were already underway. A team of workers was setting up scaffolding and unloading boxes with temporary exhibits while architects discussed plans for the final building. Robert, who had volunteered to help coordinate the project, waved to Michael when he saw him approaching. "Hey, son, look at this. I can't wait to see all this take shape," he said, indicating the site of the future museum. "It's hard to believe all this started with a storm," Michael replied, looking around in awe. "I wonder what Grandpa would think about all this." "He'd be proud," Anna said, joining them and giving Michael a gentle pat on the back. "He always believed our town had stories to tell. Now, everyone will know it." As they walked around the site, the vision began to crystallize. Rooms dedicated to the pirates who sailed the coast, interactive exhibits that would allow visitors to immerse themselves in the town's past, and, of course, a special section dedicated to Michael's grandfather's diary and the shelter that had been the catalyst for everything. Opening night finally arrived, and the town was in celebration. Lights illuminated the museum's facade, where a gleaming sign declared, "Coastal Hope Historical Museum." Residents and visitors gathered, eager to be the first to explore the new exhibits. Michael, dressed in his best suit, stood beside his family, feeling a little nervous but excited. Dr. Reed, who had become a respected figure in the town for his work investigating the artifacts, was called to open the ceremony. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice firm and clear, "today, we are not just celebrating the opening of a museum. We are honoring the past, recognizing the efforts of those who came before us, and contributing to the legacy we will leave for future generations." He paused, smiling at Michael. "And we have to thank young Michael, whose courage and curiosity brought us here. Without him, many of these stories would still be hidden." The audience applauded warmly, and Michael felt his cheeks heat up. When Dr. Reed cut the red ribbon hanging over the museum's doors, a loud cheer erupted around them. Inside, the exhibits came to life. There were displays filled with coins, jewelry, and ancient tools, each with explanatory plaques detailing their origins and significance. Michael's grandfather's diary was open to a special page, showcasing his meticulous notes and detailed sketches of the excavations. As he walked through the galleries, Michael stopped in front of an enlarged photo of his grandfather, smiling beside an excavation on one of his expeditions. "I didn't know he had done so much," Michael murmured, feeling a deep, renewed connection to the man whose passion for history had left an indelible mark on the town. "He was always exploring, always learning," Anna commented, looking at the picture fondly. "And you're following in his footsteps." With the museum now officially open, the town had a new beating heart, a place where past and present met to shape the future. And for Michael, each visit to the museum was a reminder that his grandfather's legacy lived not only in the pages of an old diary but also in the stories and lives he had touched. The night of the museum opening arrived with a palpable excitement in the air. The streets were filled with residents and visitors, all gathered to celebrate an event that promised not only to honor the past but also to mark a new beginning for the town. The lights shone brightly, highlighting the newly renovated facade of the Coastal Hope Historical Museum, which seemed to glow under the starry sky. Michael, dressed in a crisp blue shirt and dress pants, couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Beside him, Lucky sported a blue bandana around his neck, just as excited as his owner. Together, they stood in the spotlight, feeling the weight of responsibility and pride for being there. "Hey, Michael," called Lucas, his best friend, as he approached with a smile. You're famous now. How does it feel to be the town hero?" Michael laughed, shrugging as he looked at Lucky. "I think Lucky is the real hero. If it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened." "But you made it happen," Lucas insisted, looking at him with admiration. "I'm proud of you, man." Before Michael could respond, Dr. Reed took the stage, holding a microphone. He looked at the crowd with a warm smile, beginning his speech. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate an extraordinary journey that began with an act of bravery and ended in a discovery that changed our understanding of local history." Dr. Reed paused, looking at Michael and Lucky with admiration. "I want to thank Michael and his loyal companion, Lucky, for having the courage to face the storm and the curiosity to explore the unknown. Without them, we wouldn't be here today." The crowd applauded, and Michael felt his cheeks warm as he was singled out so publicly. Beside him, Lucky wagged his tail vigorously, almost as if he understood the significance of the moment. Robert and Anna, proud, stood beside Michael, smiling at their son. "You did this, my love," Anna said, emotional. "All of this is because of your determination and courage." "Yes, and also because of Grandpa," Michael added, looking at the diary exhibit in the background. He believed there was something special here. When Dr. Reed finally cut the symbolic ribbon hanging over the museum entrance, a deafening cheer echoed through the venue. The doors opened, and people began to enter, eager to see the exhibits that told the story of their town through the eyes of those who had lived it. Inside, the museum was organized to guide visitors through the eras, from the times of the pirates to the present day. Each room was filled with illuminated displays showcasing artifacts, photographs, and ancient documents. In one of the main galleries, Michael's grandfather's diary was on display, its pages open to a particularly evocative entry about the hope of preserving history for future generations. As people explored the exhibits, comments of admiration and surprise filled the air. Children ran from one room to another, marveling at the ancient treasures, while adults read the information attentively, absorbing every detail of the town's rich history. Michael, walking through the galleries, felt immersed in a mix of nostalgia and gratitude. He stopped in front of an enlarged image of his grandfather, taken during one of his field expeditions. "You would have loved this, Grandpa," he whispered to himself, imagining how his grandfather would have been thrilled to see his work finally recognized and celebrated. As the night progressed and the celebration continued, Michael and Lucky became the focal points of attention, talking with reporters and residents, sharing their stories and hearing accounts from others who had also been touched by the discoveries. As the event drew to a close, Michael felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The town not only had a museum, it had a new heart, a place where its history was honored and its future was shaped. And he, along with Lucky, had become an indelible part of that history, a reminder that courage and curiosity can open doors to infinite possibilities. The celebration at the museum continued late into the night, with laughter and music filling the air as people gathered to celebrate the city's renaissance. For Michael, however, the real celebration was happening within himself. He stepped away from the crowd to sit on a bench outside the museum, seeking a moment of silence to process everything that had happened. Lucky nestled at his feet, looking up at him with intelligent and loyal eyes, as if understanding that his young owner was lost in thought. Michael ran his hand through the dog's soft fur, feeling grateful to have Lucky by his side through all their adventures. "Hey, Michael," called a gentle voice. It was Mrs. Jenkins, the town's former librarian who had been a close friend of his grandfather. "May I join you for a moment?" "Of course, Mrs. Jenkins," Michael replied, making space for her on the bench. "It's a pleasure to see you here." She smiled warmly, her eyes shining with pride. "You know, Michael, your grandfather would be so proud of you. He always believed there was more to this town than people realized. And thanks to you, now everyone knows that." Michael nodded, still getting used to the idea that he was somehow following in his grandfather's footsteps. "I never thought that finding Lucky that night would change so much," he admitted, gazing at the stars shining above. "It was just, I wanted to save my best friend." Courage comes in many forms, Mrs. Jenkins said softly. And what you did was more than saving Lucky. You gave the town hope, showing that the past can light up the future. As they spoke, Michael remembered how it all began with a storm and a missing dog. What seemed like a disaster had turned into a catalyst for change, uncovering buried stories and new opportunities for his town. I never thought I could do something like this, Michael murmured, looking at the illuminated museum. But now I want to do more. I want to keep exploring, learning more about what's hidden out there. Mrs. Jenkins nodded, a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. And you should. There's always more to discover, more to learn. And if there's one thing I learned from your grandfather, it's that the world is full of wonders waiting to be discovered. They sat in silence for a moment, both reflecting on the possibilities of what lay ahead. Michael felt inspired and determined, ready to embrace the future with the same enthusiasm his grandfather had shown in his own adventures. With the party still going on in the background, Michael stood up, feeling lighter, as if he was ready for a new beginning. Thank you for talking with me, Mrs. Jenkins. I think Grandpa was right about this town. She smiled, giving him a warm hug. I know he was, dear. And you're just beginning your own journey. As Michael and Lucky finally made their way home that night, the boy was filled with new dreams and plans. He knew the future would be different, but instead of fearing it, he welcomed it with anticipation. The museum, his grandfather's legacy, and his love for his dog were just the beginning of a new chapter he was eager to write. And as he turned off the lights and settled into bed, Michael knew that from that moment on, his life was brimming with new and promising horizons, waiting to be explored. With the museum now functioning as a vibrant center of culture and history, the city was in full recovery. Local businesses were thriving, new enterprises were emerging, and schools were more involved than ever in projects exploring the region's rich heritage. The community had come together to ensure that the lessons of the past were passed on to future generations, and Michael was right in the midst of it all. Inspired by his grandfather's story and the experience of finding the shelter, Michael decided to get involved in community projects aimed at preserving local history and protecting the environment. He began attending city council meetings, listening attentively to discussions on development and conservation. His youthful and enthusiastic presence was welcomed with open arms, and he soon became an active and respected member. One day, during a council meeting, the mayor called everyone's attention. I'd like to recognize a young person in particular who is here with us, he said, looking at Michael. Your passion for our city and its history is an example for all of us. Michael, would you like to share some of your ideas with us? Michael stood up, feeling the weight of all eyes on him. He took a deep breath, remembering that his journey had prepared him for this moment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, he began, his words reflecting the maturity and commitment he had developed. I believe that by preserving our history, we are also building a better future. We can use our experiences to create educational projects, historical trails, and cultural events that engage both residents and visitors. The council listened attentively as Michael laid out his ideas, including the creation of school programs that would bring children to the museum regularly, local history workshops, and guided walks exploring the natural landscape and its secrets. I think it's important for children to grow up knowing their roots and understanding the importance of caring for the environment around them, he added, his voice full of conviction. And this isn't limited to our city. We can inspire other communities to do the same. After the meeting, several council members approached Michael to congratulate him. You really have a remarkable vision, said Mrs. Blake, a retired teacher who was on the council. I'm excited to see how we can turn your ideas into reality. At home, Michael shared his experiences with his family. Today was amazing, he said, excited. They really listened to my ideas, and I think we can make a difference. Robert smiled, proud of his son. You're doing something incredible, Michael. Your grandfather would be very proud of you. Yes, Anna agreed, running her hand through Michael's hair. You're showing everyone the power of an idea and how it can change the world around us. With the support of his family and the community, Michael began working on his projects, participating in local events and organizing volunteer groups to clean parks and restore historic monuments. He discovered that leadership wasn't just about giving orders, but about inspiring people to work together for a common good. Moreover, Michael learned the importance of patience and perseverance. Not all projects were easy, and not all of his ideas were accepted right away. But he understood that each step, no matter how small, contributed to something greater. As the city continued to grow and thrive, Michael felt fulfilled by being part of this transformation. He knew he was helping to shape a future where history was respected and the environment protected. And, more importantly, he was learning valuable lessons about leadership, responsibility, and the lasting impact one person can have when willing to act for the benefit of their community. With the city now flourishing around him, Michael was more certain than ever that he was on the right path, ready to face new challenges and explore even more possibilities on the horizon. As the years went by, Michael became a central figure in his community, someone people looked up to as a model of courage and leadership. Now older and more experienced, he discovered a new passion: sharing his experiences and lessons with others. Thus, he began giving talks on disaster preparedness and the importance of preserving historical heritage. On a sunny morning, Michael was preparing for one of his most important talks, held at the city auditorium. The event, which had become an annual success, attracted people of all ages, eager to hear his story and learn from his experiences. He put on his best shirt and made sure his notes for the presentation were organized. "Ready to face the crowd?" asked Anna, entering the room with a proud smile. Michael smiled back, a mix of nervousness and excitement in his eyes. "I always get a bit nervous before speaking, but I'm excited. It's important for people to understand how much of a difference they can make." When he arrived at the auditorium, the place was already packed. People filled every seat, and some even stood along the sides of the room. The stage lights shone brightly, highlighting the backdrop decorated with images of the city, both before and after the hurricane. Lucas, who had become Michael's assistant on many projects, waved from the side of the stage. "You're going to do great, Michael. Everyone is here to hear what you have to say." "Thanks, Lucas," Michael replied, giving his friend a light pat on the shoulder. "It's good to have you here." As the audience fell silent, Michael took the stage, greeted warmly by applause. He took a deep breath, feeling the positive energy from the crowd, and began his presentation. "Good morning, everyone," he started, his tone confident and engaging. "Today, I want to talk about the importance of being prepared for the challenges life can bring and how our past can guide our future." Michael shared his experiences during the hurricane, describing how his desperate search for Lucky led to discoveries that changed the city forever. He emphasized the importance of being prepared for natural disasters, stressing that everyone has the power to act, not only to protect themselves but also to help the community. "Preparation isn't just about having supplies and plans," he said. "It's about being mentally ready to face the unexpected and being resilient when things get tough." He also spoke about the value of historical heritage, illustrating how his grandfather's journal and the artifacts found had become a bridge between the past and the present, enriching the lives of everyone around him. "Preserving our history isn't just a duty, it's an opportunity," Michael continued. "It's a chance to learn from what came before, to avoid past mistakes, and to celebrate our victories." The presentation was interspersed with personal stories and practical examples that captivated the audience's attention. He used images and videos to illustrate his points, making the event not only educational but also emotionally impactful. When he finished, the room erupted in applause, and Michael felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. As he left the stage, many people approached to thank him and share how his story had inspired them to take action in their own lives. "Your words really touched my heart," said a young mother, holding her small child's hand. "I'm going to start teaching my son about the importance of history and preparedness." "Thank you," Michael replied, feeling honored. "That's why I do this, to make sure we're all better prepared for what the future holds." At the end of the day, As the auditorium began to empty, Michael stayed for a moment, reflecting on the impact his words had made. He knew he had found his purpose, to use his experience to empower and inspire others. With this mission in mind, he was determined to continue growing, learning, and helping his community face the future with confidence and courage. He knew there was still much to do, many challenges to face, and many stories to tell. And with the strength of the lessons he had learned along the way, he was ready to face whatever came next. With the resounding success of the museum and the growing tourist interest in the city, Michael found himself increasingly drawn to the idea of deepening his knowledge about the history and heritage of his region. Inspired by the discoveries that had transformed the city, he decided he wanted to make archaeology not just a passion, but a career. On that sunny autumn morning, as he walked through the park toward the museum, Michael pondered his future. The scent of fallen leaves and the sound of children laughing on the playground created an atmosphere of peace and reflection. At the museum, he was greeted by Dr. Reed, who was reviewing some new additions to the exhibits. "Good morning, Michael," the archaeologist said, adjusting his glasses. "How's the future archaeology student?" Michael smiled, excited. "I'm more certain than ever that this is what I want to do. There's so much to learn and discover. I want to continue what we've started here." Dr. Reed nodded, pleased with the young man's determination. "You have a natural talent for this. Your curiosity and determination are exactly what we need in this field. Have you thought about which university you want to apply to?" "Yes," Michael replied, picking up a brochure from one of the museum tables. "I'm thinking about State University. They have an excellent archaeology program and a respected faculty." "A solid choice," Dr. Reed said. "I have some contacts there. If you need recommendations or help with the application process, I'm happy to assist." "I would greatly appreciate that, Dr. Reed. Your help would be amazing," Michael said, feeling grateful for the support. Over the next few weeks, Michael immersed himself in the application process, spending hours researching programs, writing essays, and preparing his applications. He spent entire afternoons at the city library, reviewing historical documents and academic articles, absorbing as much knowledge as he could. During one of those afternoons, Anna joined him at the library, bringing him a snack and coffee. "How's it going?" she asked, pulling up a chair next to Michael. "Yes, I'm trying to finalize my personal statement," Michael replied, rubbing his tired eyes. "I want them to see how much this means to me." "I'm sure they will," Anna said confidently. "You have an incredible story to tell, and any university would be lucky to have you." Michael smiled, feeling encouraged. "I really hope so. I want to make a difference, not just for myself, but for our city and beyond." With the support of his family and the guidance of Dr. Reed, Michael submitted his applications to several universities, each envelope carrying his hopes and dreams. The waiting for responses was anxious but also filled with anticipation. Finally, one day, while he was at the museum helping with a new exhibit, his phone vibrated. It was an email notification. Michael felt his heart race as he saw it was from State University. "Are you okay?" Lucas, who was next to him setting up a display case, asked. "It's from the university," Michael said, his voice trembling with emotion. He slowly opened the email, his eyes scanning the words that would change his future. "I've been accepted," he exclaimed, turning to Lucas with a radiant smile. "I did it." Lucas hugged him, sharing in the joy of the moment. "That's amazing, Michael. I'm so proud of you." When Michael shared the news with his parents that night, the house was filled with joy and celebration. They knew this was the beginning of a new adventure, one that would take him to explore the world, discover new stories, and protect the treasures that were yet to be revealed. With his acceptance to the university and the support of his community, Michael was ready to embark on a promising future. He knew that, while he would be leaving the city temporarily to study, he would always carry with him the lessons learned and the desire to make a difference, wherever his discoveries might lead him. With his acceptance to the university securing a promising future, Michael still felt the responsibility to leave a mark before departing. Inspired by his love for archaeology and his desire to share that enthusiasm with other young people, he decided to start a youth archaeology club at his school. His vision was clear: to create a space where students could learn, explore, and connect with history in a hands-on and exciting way. The club began small, with only a few members, but quickly grew as more students became interested in discovering the past and better understanding their own roots. The first official meeting took place on a Thursday afternoon in the school library, where Michael presented his vision for the club. "Welcome, everyone," Michael began, looking at the curious faces surrounding him. "I want this club to be a place where we can explore history in a practical and interactive way. We'll learn about excavations, interpret artifacts, and even visit historical sites in our city." Lucas, who had become Michael's right-hand man in the club, handed out flyers detailing the planned activities. "We'll have workshops with experts, like Dr. Reed, and take field trips to the museum to see the artifacts that have been found right here in our city." "That sounds amazing," exclaimed Clara, one of the younger and more enthusiastic students. "I've always loved history, but I never thought I could learn like this." "Exactly," Michael agreed, smiling at Clara. "History isn't just about the past. It's about understanding who we are and where we come from. And when we explore it together, we can discover new and exciting things." As the club gained traction, Michael showed a natural aptitude for leadership. He encouraged each member to share their ideas, making sure everyone felt part of the group. His enthusiasm was contagious, and soon the club became one of the most popular at the school. One afternoon, while Michael was at the museum preparing a lecture for the club, Dr. Reed approached with a look of approval. "You're doing an admirable job with these young people, Michael," the archaeologist said, watching the young man with pride. "Your passion is inspiring a new generation of explorers." "Thank you, Dr. Reed," Michael replied humbly. "I want them to feel the same excitement I felt when I discovered my grandfather's shelter. There's so much to learn, and I want them to know they can make a difference." "You already are," Dr. Reed said, "and I'm sure that wherever your journey takes you, you'll continue to inspire many others." The club organized its first major field trip to a nearby archaeological site, a place that, according to historical documents, housed the ruins of an ancient indigenous community. The expedition was a success, with the students learning to use archaeological tools and document their findings. "Look at this," Lucas shouted, holding up a piece of pottery he had unearthed. "I think we've found something." Michael approached, examining the artifact carefully. "This is incredible, Lucas. It's proof that we're on the right track. Let's document and share our findings with the museum." The field experience reinforced Michael's commitment to the club and the community. He realized that through education and exploration, he was helping to build a bridge between the past and the future, a legacy that would continue to grow even after his departure for university. As the end of the school year approached, the club planned a farewell event, a celebration of everyone's achievements. Michael, looking at the group that had gathered, knew he was leaving something special behind. He had cultivated not just an interest in archaeology, but a lasting passion for history and discovery. At the final meeting, Clara stood up to speak on behalf of the group. "Michael, you've taught us to look at the past in a completely new way. And for that, we are forever grateful. We promise to continue your work and keep the club strong." With tears in his eyes, Michael replied, "Thank you, everyone. Seeing how much you've grown and dedicated yourselves means the world to me. I know the club will be in good hands, and you'll continue to explore and learn." The Youth Archaeology Club had become more than Michael had ever imagined. And as he prepared for a new chapter in his life, he knew he was leaving a legacy of passion and knowledge that would continue to light the path for many others. The years flowed by like a fast-moving river, bringing change and growth to the city once marked by a devastating hurricane. Michael's impact, which had started as a spark of curiosity and bravery, had transformed into a beacon of inspiration illuminating the entire community. Over time, The museum had become a symbol of renewal and knowledge, expanding its facilities to accommodate new interactive exhibits. These spaces not only told the ancient history of the city and its deep roots, but also recounted the incredible journey of Michael and his faithful dog, Lucky. The museum had incorporated cutting-edge technology, allowing visitors to explore history through virtual reality experiences and educational games that captivated all ages. Michael, now a renowned archaeologist with numerous expeditions and publications to his name, continued to be involved with the museum and his hometown. On a clear spring morning, he was invited to the reopening of a special wing of the museum dedicated to new discoveries made by him and his team on expeditions around the world. As he walked through the museum, the walls adorned with photos of his excavations and trophies from his academic achievements, Michael felt a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility. He remembered how it all had begun, a desperate search for his dog, Lucky, and his grandfather's secret shelter. At the reopening ceremony, a large crowd gathered. Families, children, and visitors from various parts of the country came to see the new exhibits. Dr. Reed, now a mentor and close friend of Michael, took the stage to present the event. "It's an honor to be here today to celebrate the reopening of this incredible wing," Dr. Reed began, looking at the crowd. "Michael, your dedication to archaeology and to our community is truly remarkable. Your passion has inspired us all and continues to do so." The audience applauded warmly as Michael stood up to speak, his eyes sweeping over the faces of friends, family, and young students who, like he once was, were full of dreams and curiosity. "Thank you, Dr. Reed, and to everyone who came today," Michael said, his voice filled with emotion. "This museum is more than a collection of artifacts. It is a testament to the power of curiosity, courage, and community. Each of us has the power to make a difference and discover treasures that can change our lives." He spoke about his adventures and discoveries, but also about the importance of never forgetting where one comes from. "It all started here," he continued, looking around, "and I will always carry with me the lessons I learned in this city." After the speech, Michael reunited with former members of the Youth Archaeology Club, many of whom were now pursuing careers in history, archaeology, and conservation. Clara, one of the club's most enthusiastic members, approached with a smile. "Michael, it's so great to see you back," she said, recalling the days when Michael inspired her to find her own path in archaeology. "It's great to be back," Michael replied, seeing how Clara had grown and flourished. "You all are doing amazing things, and I'm so proud of each of you." The museum, in its new form, represented a living legacy of Michael's work and love for history and community. He knew that although his role in the city had evolved, his roots were still there, firmly planted, nurturing the next generation of explorers and dreamers. As the ceremony continued, Michael felt a deep peace. He had come a long way since that stormy day, and the city that had once been his home was now a place of constant inspiration and hope. He knew that, despite all the adventures still ahead, he would always have a home where his heart truly belonged. And with that certainty, he was ready to face any new challenge the future might bring. The celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Coastal Historical Museum was a spectacular event, drawing people from near and far. Colorful balloons floated in the gentle breeze as music filled the air with a sense of festivity and accomplishment. The museum, now an icon of the city, was alive with energy, reflecting the vibrant and resilient spirit of a community that had transformed over the past decade. Michael stood in the museum's courtyard, observing the crowd gathered to celebrate not just the milestone of the museum, but also the journey that had started with him and Lucky many years ago. He was engaged in an animated conversation with Dr. Reed and some of the former members of the Youth Archaeology Club, now his colleagues. "I can't believe it's been 10 years, Dr. Reed said, looking around, visibly moved. "I remember when all of this was just an idea, a distant dream." Michael nodded, his gaze drifting into the memories of that time. "It's been an incredible journey. I never imagined that stormy day would change my life so much." Clara, now a renowned archaeologist in her own right, joined the conversation with a smile. "And to think it all started with Lucky. Who would have thought a dog could spark so many changes? They laughed together, sharing a moment of reflection on how far everyone had come. As they talked, a young voice caught Michael's attention. "Mr. Michael, Mr. Michael." A girl, probably around 8 years old, ran up to him holding a miniature copy of his grandfather's journal, sold at the museum's gift shop. "Can you sign my book, please?" Michael bent down to her level, his heart warmed by the admiration in the girl's eyes. "Of course, what's your name?" "It's Lily," she replied, smiling shyly. "I want to be an archaeologist someday, just like you." He signed the book with a flourish and handed it back to Lily, touched by the thought of inspiring a new generation. "Keep exploring and always follow your curiosity, Lily. The world is full of stories waiting for someone like you to discover them." As he straightened up, Michael watched Lily run back to her group, her face alight with enthusiasm. He smiled to himself, realizing that the legacy of his journey was just beginning. The children wandering through the museum, captivated by the interactive exhibits and stories of courage and discovery, were proof that Michael and Lucky's impact was enduring. At that moment, the museum director took the stage set up in the garden, tapping the microphone to get the crowd's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "today we celebrate not only 10 years of preserved stories, but also the indomitable spirit of a city that has learned to grow and reinvent itself." He paused, his gaze finding Michael in the crowd. "And we owe all of this to someone who, as a boy, had the courage to face a storm and the curiosity to look beyond what was evident. Michael, please join us here on stage." Thunderous applause filled the air as Michael walked up to the stage, feeling a mix of humility and pride. When he reached the microphone, he looked out at the crowd and saw many familiar faces: friends, family, mentors, and young dreamers. "Thank you, everyone," he began, emotion evident in his voice. "It's an honor to be here today, celebrating not just a museum but a community that came together to create something truly special. It all started with a dog named Lucky and a night I will never forget." He paused, letting his words resonate. This museum is a symbol of what we can achieve when we believe in the power of stories and history. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, we can find light if we look in the right places. The crowd was silent, absorbing the weight of Michael's words. "Let's continue to explore, to learn, and to grow together," he concluded. "Because true wealth lies in our knowledge and our spirit of discovery." The applause was deafening, and Michael felt more connected than ever to the city and the people he loved so much. As he left the stage, he spotted Lucky lying in the sun, now an older dog but still as loyal as ever. Michael knelt beside him, stroking his fur with affection. "Ready for more adventures, old friend?" he asked softly, smiling as Lucky wagged his tail in response. As the sun began to set, bathing the city in a golden light, Michael knew he was only at the beginning of another chapter in his life. A chapter filled with new discoveries, stories waiting to be told, and a legacy that would continue to inspire courage and curiosity for generations to come.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.